Well, thank you again for coming on. And we had a long conversation about a week ago just about the importance of women's sports and athletics and the ladies that are in it. And as a coach of a women's sport, I know you're a big advocate of a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I was really excited to get you on. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for asking. Happy to be here.
So, just to introduce you, Coach Harmony Pyper. You are the head girls basketball coach at Chaparral High School in California. This was just your second year, and prior to that, you were at Linfield Christian School for 4 years as a head coach and a couple years as an assistant.
Yes, correct.
Good. You're also an occupational therapist, so you work with youngsters not only on the court but outside of sports and in the classroom and at home and all kinds of stuff. So welcome. Thank you very much again.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here and have this conversation.
Yeah, so as we
Good.
spoke last week, what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep culture and team building and just character development and mental resilience, offensive mindset, all that kind of stuff that are encompass all the intangibles and trying to develop um, through athletics, trying to develop young people into the strongest and most productive and successful and mentally healthy individuals as they can be as they get older. And just tell us a little bit. I guess I want to start out, just talk to me about your advocacy for just young ladies in sports and women coaches.
Yes, absolutely. It's a huge part of my passion and purpose, really, as a coach. I also am on the board for our youth program. So we have a youth program in Temecula, California, and it serves about 900 youth players from kindergarten up to 8th grade. And we, in that program, also are always trying to increase the numbers of girls playing, starting at a young age, as well as making sure that we have as many women as possible included and supported to coach the girls and the boys. I actually
Right.
started coaching in college, youth basketball in college, and I started coaching with girls. And then as I had my own kids, my firstborn is a son. And so my first experience getting back into coaching was with boys, and I coached
Yeah.
boys. Um, so women coaching in girls sports and in boys sports is awesome. There's just a shortage for sure of
Right.
women coaching and in all sports, and trying to be an advocate and a support system for women to get into coaching is part of my passion and purpose. So I do my best in my community to support and encourage other women to get into coaching and sports. And yeah, I love it.
Is there a particular thing that um, because I guarantee you, I mean, obviously we have a lot more men coaches watching this, but
Yeah.
a lot of those male coaches, those men coaches that watch this will have friends, family members, spouses, partners, whatever you want to call it, that are very good with just people, just young people in general.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of people, women and men, but probably more women, that think to themselves, well, athletics is, I don't know if I could be a coach, an athletic coach as a woman, regardless of sport, regardless of the gender. What would you say to young ladies, even women that are my age, your age, that have a desire to really try and get into coaching athletics, what are some steps? What are some opportunities? How would they start?
Sure. I mean, I think that there are a lot of youth programs these days, and a lot of, well, men and women probably start to get into coaching through their own kids as their kids
Right.
start to participate in sports at a young age. It's a great place to start. It's definitely where I started. I played basketball, but I started coaching actually as a 18, 19-year-old. First actually with swim team, and then started coaching as a college student, started coaching youth basketball. So sometimes it's because we're former athletes, and so we make that transition from playing and competing as an athlete to getting into coaching because we love the game, of course, so much. But if I think there are often a lot of barriers to women coaching. A lot of it is childcare related, and being able to start by coaching your own kids in youth sports. That is a great place to get started. There's also so many resources online these days too. USA Basketball is really, when I wanted to further my education and coaching, I turned to USA Basketball and did training.
That's good.
They have coaching academies and a lot of online resources. So there are a ton of resources online for all coaches, but for women too, to
Right.
also start to look into it more. And I think just I think we have to be intentional about helping to support women to look for,
Yeah.
reach out, try to find women to get involved into coaching, make it a, intentional choice to hire coaches that are women, and help with whatever barriers we can, because representation, it really is important, and it does matter. But sometimes we need the people that are in the position
Right.
to hire coaches to, be advocates and allies into getting women into coaching.
It's funny and it's interesting, and I hope people take note of this, what we're talking about right here. But I can't tell you how many younger men, and I've had women too as well, say, "Well, I never played this sport. I want to coach it, but I never played it." Since I'm a football coach, it's like I never really played. Even in high school, I didn't play much, but I love the game and I want to coach. But I don't feel like I can get out there and coach players if I didn't have, a super successful athletic career or didn't even play the sport. Some of the best coaches out there never played the sport, and in order to be an excel at coaching, and I think you would agree with this, you have to be able to teach. You have to teach, you have to communicate, and you have to connect. And if you can
Hmm.
do those things, you can learn any sport. You can. I was at one of my jobs. I for 2 years in a row, I was the head JV girls volleyball coach. I didn't know anything about volleyball. I'm a father of 3 boys.
Yeah,
It was the funnest thing I've ever done in my life.
that's cool.
So for everybody out there, I guess what Coach Pyper's saying is, if you want to do it, just start.
Yeah.
Find a resource, find a coach, and say, "This is what I want to do." Let them lead you in that direction.
Yeah, you can find mentors. I mean, the other great thing is to, start as an assistant. So partner up with somebody who
Yeah.
has that coaching knowledge about the sport and about coaching, and, partner up with them, and, start there, and just be there to really support the coach. And I mean, in youth sports, it's a lot of, herding cats. So just even another set of hands to help with the kids. But then along the way, obviously you pick up on the X's and O's, and if you have a love for it and a desire to help mentor. I mean, I think that's a big deal for sure in youth sports, is wanting to do it for the right reasons, wanting to mentor kids. And then there are, like you said, tons of resources to learning more of the X's and O's and strategies and fundamentals and all of that.
Absolutely. Being an occupational therapist, and we had this discussion briefly, and me being a special education teacher when I was teaching, I think we're unique in the sense that we really are aware of individuals' mental health, especially those that we work with, whether they're athletes or students or younger kids. I was watching the Dateline the other night, and uh, it was a murder mystery, right? And they were talking about
Love those.
this son, and I looked at him, and within like 2 minutes, I was like Asperger's, and then
Yeah.
about 15 minutes later, they came on and said that. But the point is, I think we're very aware of the mental health and the mental health struggle that a lot of younger people have. So, not just in your occupational therapy, but as a coach, how does that play into the way that you communicate, the way that you team build, the way that you teach character development, that kind of stuff? How does the mental health come into play?
Um, Honestly, I would say it's probably the most important part of my program and how I coach. I've been a mental health advocate for years now, and definitely that stems from my training as an occupational therapist, also just personal experiences and working with a lot of teenagers and kids. So it's huge. It's a priority in my program. Any team I coach, but at the high school level, especially, I make sure I'm very well educated and informed as to what they are going through, and it's different. I mean, it's different in this climate now with social media. It's
Mhm.
huge, and so many screens, and decrease of interactions and being outside, and a lot of other factors. And so we make it a big priority. We talk about it constantly. We do a ton of film sessions, but every single film session starts with writing in our journals. We have basketball journals, and it might be, we go through pros and cons of the games and all of that too, but we also talk about stress management and what are your top ways of managing your stress. And we share openly so that we can get ideas from each other and they can learn about what everybody's going through. This year was our first year of doing a retreat. So we did a preseason retreat where we went away for a night,
That's
and
awesome.
it was a lot of fun, and a lot of team building activities, but also a lot of time that we spent talking about the challenges and the stresses. And it was a very trust building experience because there was a lot of vulnerability, and players got to hear from each other probably things that they didn't know that their teammates were going through, that they also go through. And so we do the talking and getting it out, and then we also make sure that then we discuss the ways to work on stress and the ways to manage that, and what it looks like if you're struggling so much that you need more help, and how to ask for help, and
Right.
where to ask for help, and that it's okay to ask for help. um, it's a huge part of my program.
And it's interesting that you talk about that, because when we talked about this too, but being a coach of a woman's sport is has this it's different than being a sport. It doesn't have to be, but the reality is it's different than being a coach of a male sport. And a lot of men coaches, it's specifically football coaches, right? Let's just call it for what it is. We have a tendency to just say, toughen up, right? Or get over it, or fight through it. Okay.
Mhm.
And I always found myself having those same conversations, maybe not as in much detail or depth, um, but we would always talk in every meeting about some form of mental health. And they didn't even know we were talking about mental health, whether it was
Sure.
choices, anxiety, stress, management of time, stuff like that. But I've been around some of the greatest coaches I've been around. Don't talk about that stuff.
Hmm.
They bring others in to discuss that with their players. But the fact of the matter is that you can take your team to an overnight retreat, and your athletes be sharing the things that they're going through, and then there's discussions from everybody there. Shows, like you said, it's completely vulnerable, but in order to be vulnerable, we both know that there needs to be trust there.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
in order for there to be trust, there has to be communication. So from a communication aspect, what would you encourage any coach to do in order to get that young person to get to the point where they completely trust you, and they're willing to be vulnerable with you because they trust you, from a communication piece?
I think that first and foremost, I kind of my guiding principle is that they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And that has to be active. That's not just telling them how much you care and saying, they know I love them or anything like that. You actually have to show it in the ways that you show up for them. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I have a binder that they have a check-in sheet before every practice, and some athletes are not comfortable speaking about feelings, but they might be more comfortable writing things down, and so they do a check-in every day, so that I can take a look, and it'll say on there if they would like to speak to me or if they would like to speak to somebody, so that I can follow back up with them and say, hey, how you doing? So there's that. We try to spend individual time checking in with them, talking to them, making sure they know that they can always come to me with anything. Confidentiality is important. However, of course, I also have to make sure that they know if I'm ever concerned about their safety or the safety of others, that I would, need to discuss that with someone, but I would help them through all of that. So I think that it is making sure you're having individual time with them to check in, and also different modes of communication, whether, again, if that's so they can write down their feelings, or be able to say, hey, coach, can I meet with you? Or so those are some of the ways that we do it. We also, of course, we make sure we do a lot of team bonding and team activities outside of the sport. Good. We do, they love food. So teenagers, that's really also that's how you show them you care. You just bring a lot of snacks. Right. So I bring a lot of snacks to every meeting. We do team dinners, we do team Christmas parties. We go to games, they do stuff together, but you have to make sure you're spending a lot of time outside of the sport to really develop that trust and those relationships. And so that's what we try to do.
And that goes into culture, because as we know, culture varies from program to program, from sport to sport, because your culture is truly what you do, your standards, your values that you promote, and what you do within your program. So how do you make sure that your culture is felt rather than just seen, but actually felt, compared to just talked about?
That's a great question. So we do, at the beginning of the season, like at the retreat, we do establish our standards together. So we discuss together what the standards are of our program. And we also discuss, like, what would be some of the consequences that we understand and agree upon if somebody does not live up to that standard. And there is some of that, like somebody not communicating that they're not going to come to practice, and then maybe next time, there's more running involved, or they understand there's going to be less minutes played in the game, things like that. So they're very much involved in that. I think that's important, that because it's really their team. Like I'm there, us coaches are there to guide them and to step in when they need help, but it's their team. And so they have to be involved in establishing those standards. But I think also, we make sure like at the end of practice, we all get together, we hold hands in a circle at the end. We go through and we usually do a shout out for a teammate, or we say something we're grateful for. We say something that, that we give a shout out to ourselves too, which is very difficult sometimes, even more so. We shout out to ourselves, a shout out to a teammate. We make some accountability promises, things that they, that they're going to work on for the week, and make those promises to each other. So, we try to be very active in it. I always want to learn more and try to do more too in that. So that's definitely something I'm going to add for next year too.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest threat is to a healthy team culture? Because listen, as healthy as a culture can be, whatever sport it is, whatever environment it is, there's always going to be threats to that health, especially the more healthy it is, right? So, what would the biggest threat you think be to not just your team culture, your healthy team culture, but others? What do you fight?
Well, I think that these days, no matter how healthy your culture is, I think that you have players that have a lot of outside, they just have a lot of input.
Noise. Yeah.
And it's just coming from everywhere. We have travel ball, we have trainers, we have parents, we have friends, we have social media. I mean, it's just so much. And I feel for them. It's very difficult. I mean, they're still, I'm a high school coach, so they're still kids, and they're
Right.
trying to figure out how to take in all this input and often opinions and make the right choices. And that's really hard. And so we do talk about that too. But sometimes it's outside of your control. I mean, that's what I teach them, is that you can only control your reaction and your choices. You can't control what other people are going to do or say. And that comes, sometimes that's for us too as coaches.
Absolutely.
We do the best we can to make the right choices and be the best example and give them a great experience. That's really what we're trying to do, is give them a great experience. They're not all going to go on to play college. I definitely have had players go on to play college, and have some right now that will go on and play in college, but they're not all going to do that. And so this is just supposed to be a great experience for them. But sometimes you could do the best job, best job, and somebody's still going to come along and they're going to have a different opinion, or they're going to make a choice that you don't quite understand, but you just have to control your response and know that they're doing the best they can too with how much they're getting, how much information they're getting.
We used to always use the term leave your baggage at the dorm, leave your baggage at the door. And basically how we would explain it. And this was an everyday thing. It's like, I would have to we'd be on the field, and here's some kid with and what's going on. And hey, you can't do anything about it right now.
Yeah.
You can't control it. If it was a serious thing, go take care of it. Go be with your family, go do this. But the social media stuff, the girls or boys situation, the
Yeah.
drama, whatever, like when you're on the court, on the field, you unfortunately you can't control it then.
Right.
You focus on this now, and when you're done, let's talk, and then we'll figure out what we can do to help you get past all that stuff. Mental resilience is a hard thing. So as the head coach, as a coach, um, how do you model mental resilience?
How do I model mental resilience? Well, I I do take that very seriously. I try to model a pretty calm, neutral affect too. I mean, during during games, sometimes I get told like, "Coach, you seem so calm," and that's not always necessarily what's going on internally, but um, it's important for me to model that to my team and to understand, there's in basketball we say they go on runs, there's ups and downs, and you can't ride the waves. We're not trying to teach to ride the waves. We're trying to, stay just below the surface where it's really nice and calm. And we do work on mindfulness, and I practice that in my own life, and just breathing exercises and ways to keep yourself calm. And so I do try to model that, and we talk about that a lot too. I mean, we're human. It's not always
Yep.
easy. I'm sure I've, had some strong words for a ref here or
Yeah.
there, but for the most part, like I definitely try to model that for them
Good.
too. And if we slip up or if they slip up, then we talk through it. And again, we work on strategies. Like it's not enough to just say, stay calm. Like
Right.
we actually have to teach them the how, so we work on the how and constantly. So
That's good. For me, it was always, like psychology 101.
yeah,
When you're on the field and you may be getting, throttled early and you didn't expect it, and all the kids are freaking out. I would have people say, why are you so calm when you're doing it? Because if the kids are freaking out and I freak out, we're done.
right.
So if the kids are freaking out, I'm going to try and remain as calm as I can. On the flip side of that, if we get ahead a lot, if we got ahead a lot and kids got a little bit too loose, then my intensity showed up, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, "Coach, we're winning by 21 points." Oh, and so it's a hard thing to do. That was a great answer. I like that.
Thanks.
Um, Speaking about that, how do you
Yeah.
identify leaders in your program?
Um, well, we in preseason, we do a pretty good preseason. The athletes that aren't in fall sports that can come out and be part of it. And I basically say, here are the things that we're looking for. I'm looking for leaders. We're looking for leaders in the preseason. We do a lot of processing. So we have meetings, we talk about what is a good leader, what makes for a good leader, what are the characteristics we're looking for. Um, and um, and then we say, okay, we're going to take this preseason, it's not always the full preseason, but we're gonna take this time to evaluate, and if it's something you're interested in, meaning being a captain on our team, then we're looking for these qualities in leaders. We actually did. I don't do it every year, but this year we did. I did let the team vote um, on leaders, on captains, after we discussed what we were looking for and what makes for a good captain and a good leader. And then we did have the players vote on that, and I think we had done enough work on it that the players they voted to be captains were the right choices.
Good.
So it did work out.
Good, because that doesn't always happen.
Doesn't always happen, and there are years that I'm like, you know what? I think coaches are gonna choose this year. Or there'll be a coach's choice and a player's choice, or,
Right.
So I have to reevaluate that every year. But last year I did have confidence in the team, and that we would do enough work ahead of time that they would be able to identify the leaders.
Do you guys implement a leadership council in your program?
We not so much. We do captain meetings. So
Yeah.
we choose two captains. So I guess that's our council. we have
Yeah, no,
we
that
we have
is.
two captains, and then we do meet with our captains. And
Good.
I would, ideally like to do even a little bit more of a leadership program with them. There's some great resources. Jeff Jansen has some books on culture and leadership, and so I've worked through that book before. And but man, there's only so much time, and sometimes you run. I have all these really good ideas at the beginning of the season, and then sometimes we run out of time. So I do definitely try to meet with my captains, and if I'm feeling something's a little off, I will go to them first and talk to them about how to talk with their team. But right now, that's kind of what we're doing.
Right. So last question I have for you, Coach. When it comes to life and life lessons, specifically, what's the most important thing that you feel like you do to help athletes discover and live out their own personal ethos? What they want to do, what they want to be, what they stand for.
I would say probably the most important thing that we have done is our retreat last year. I think the retreat was really, no pun intended, but a game changer. I mean, I think it was. I think that the other piece of it is that the piece that we work on stress management and the mental side of the game, because I think that especially in this day and age, like we talked about, that it's so important to help them with that, because it's not about basketball.
No.
It's really about that they're going to leave me, they're going to leave our program at some point, and I want to know that they're going out into a world that's going to throw even more challenges at them, and that I'm hoping they've learned some skills through our program that's going to help them out in the world with that. And then from there, they can really start to discover, who they are and make good choices and, be leaders and contribute to the community. But I think the foundation of that is mental health.
Right. And I can't tell you how many times I've had kids that I coach, and when I say kids, up to 22 years old, coaching college. Still to this day, I have individuals that I coached still reach out to me. Whether they're struggling, whether they're doing really well, whether something we taught them or stuck with them, they just wanted to thank me for it, or there was a situation and they want to share it. And I think from a legacy standpoint, as coaches, just in general, that's probably, for the coaches that are in it for the kids first, that's probably the biggest, I don't even know the word. It's very humbling for me to hear those things. And as it sounds like it is for you too. And that's what you want to instill in those kids, that they know that they always have someone they can count on.
Yeah, I got invited to my first former player wedding.
Wow.
And that was the moment I was like, this is, we talk about this, like, what kind of coach do you want to be? Like down the line when they're talking about you to their families or their kids, or when they have the opportunity to make their guest list for their wedding, like, do you want to be on that guest list? And that's the kind of coach that I want to be. I always say I'm your coach for life. So I hope that wherever you go, that you can always reach out, and I'm always still here for you. So I just got my first wedding invitation for a former player, and I kind of feel like, I've arrived.
Well, listen, for everybody out there, going back to the initial before we go, if anybody needs to get a hold or wants to get a hold of Coach Harmony Pyper and get into coaching or teaching, or pick her brain, I know she's available. Get a hold of us at More Than the Scoreboard, and we'll go from there. And in the meantime, Coach, we'll be following you closely, and it's been a true blessing for me to have you on here. And thank you so much.
No, I'm so grateful. Thanks for having me. And anytime, I'm always happy to help. So if anyone wants to reach out, please feel free.
There you go.
All right.
Go Pumas.
Thank you. You bet.